morning, everyone. My name is Sophie Mesumeci, and I'm wearing my new favorite t-shirt today, which says Rosé all day. I have a very random story to share with you, which is my life. And, you know, looking back now, I am in Sydney, but looking back, I had quite an idyllic childhood where I grew up on a very small hobby farm. We had all of our animals had names. So we had a pet cow called Lulu, I had a pet pig called Gertrude. We had everything had names. The animals sometimes would sleep on the back veranda, and the closest town had 400 people in it. So very, very, very small. And I just remember I was 16 years old and the phone rang, and I answered the phone, and it was the principal from the school. And the principal said, "Oh, is that Sophie?" And I said, "Yes." And he goes, "Great. This is the principal from school. We think you need to sign a release form because you're never here." And I was like, okay. And I realized at that point that I had created this parrot, like this thing where everything that was happening at school, you know, where you go and you had to just listen and you got all of the work to do, it just wasn't resonating with me. And I found out that I love learning through experience. Like I love to do it. So I said to Dad, I have to leave school. And he said, "Well, if you're going to leave school, you have to get a job." And my dad is an Italian man, so very hardworking. We had the hobby farm, plus he worked full time as well. And so I went and got my first job, which was actually in a vineyard as a fencing contractor. So there I would be in my high vis, in my winter, like full waterproof coats, jackets, boots, spraying paint on the floor of the ground in the paddock full of mud where all the posts would be knocked in. And I remember looking over at everyone else, and they looked so miserable. But to me, I was so exciting. Every hour that clocked over, I was earning an extra $13. And it just kind of clicked over in my brain that if we put in the work, yeah, Lauren, if we put in the work, there's a reward. And this is the first time I ever kind of was awakened to that fact, because, you know, we always had whatever we wanted on the farm. You know, you could just go get it. So, but one job wasn't enough because I was bored. So then I got two more. And by the time I was 18, one of a friend of a friend turned to me and she said, "I'm moving to the Gold Coast in 2 weeks. Want to come?" And I just said, yes. Now, I'd never been to the Gold Coast before. I had never really left South Australia, to be honest. I maybe went to Melbourne once when I was young, but that was about it. And so I went home and I said to Mum and Dad, "I'm going to move to the Gold Coast. Oh, and can I have $1,000? And I remember Mum and Dad's face, like I'm the youngest child of three, and Dad's mouth literally nearly hit the floor. Like, what? Like, you don't do that where I grew up. You get a job, you get a boyfriend, you get married, you have babies, you buy a house. That's pretty much it." And I was the first person ever in both sides of my families, actually anyone that I ever knew, to leave the town. And they just said, okay. And so they gave me the $1,000. I think I still owe them it, by the way. They gave me the $1,000, and I figured out that was enough for me to get petrol, to put a deposit down on an apartment, and to give myself enough money until I got a job. Now, from there, I remember driving through Gold Coast for the first time, and I was like a kid, you know, in the window, and I've got my face pushed up against the glass, looking at the tall buildings, just going, "Oh my God, this is amazing." Like, the girl from the country is now living on the Gold Coast. And fast forward, you know, a lot of different jobs, and I just kind of kept going at one level. And then I would just always be that person that said, "How can I help? What else can I do?" And by being that person who always said yes, I managed to climb up through the different companies that I worked with. And when I got to a point where I would be the manager and I'd figured out how it all worked now, I would then leave that job and then go for the next one over here. So that allowed me to kind of move like this quite quickly. And I got a great opportunity to come to Sydney. And I just said yes. I'd never been to Sydney before I said yes for this job. And again, I remember driving through the city, absolutely petrified. If anyone's ever driven through Sydney for the first time ever, this was before Navmans and everything, you know, I had no idea where I was going. And I was so scared, but I was so excited at the same time, because I just said yes and jumped in. And I just backed myself and thought, I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to find a way. And the high rises are like triple the size of the Gold Coast. And it all just was amazing. And I went to the races one day and I met my husband, now husband. And we set up this most beautiful life. And I found myself in my first corporate job. And I remember walking through the door, just thinking it was a beautiful brand new building. And here I am, the country girl who had a pet pig, who left school in year 11, is now working, and at the time I was working for Westpac, in a brand new building overlooking the harbour, and I was just completely swept away. And Daniel and I, we had Toby, our son, and everyone where we worked. By the way, anytime they asked me for my qualifications, I just changed the subject. Because I didn't have a Year 12 certificate, I didn't have a degree, I didn't have any of that. What I had was a yes attitude, you know, that whole can-do attitude. That was me. I was like, yep, I'll figure it out. And then I would go and surround myself with people who knew. I would ask for help. I would just make it happen. And I remember coming home, and I think Toby was he must have been nearly 2 years old. And we had a nanny looking after him because we both worked in corporate. And I remember looking at him, and I realized that he had picked up more of his Polish nanny's mannerisms than he had of mine or Daniel's. And it was this real I'm not sure if I can swear on here, but it was one of those moments where I just was like, shit, I had been working so hard for something, but completely missed sight of something that was so important. And I think the reason is, like, my mum was a stay-at-home mum. She had part-time jobs. So Angela, your story is just like hitting the mark for my mum, like so much. And I had realized that I had totally underestimated the importance of having a mum that stayed at home, or a mum that was around. But I didn't want to sacrifice my financial independence. I love that I'm kind of following Angela. This is all like very linked. And I didn't want to give that up because I had always had my own money. And my husband and I, we do not have the same bank accounts. And so I didn't know what else to do. I was pregnant with my daughter, Stella. And when she was 6 weeks old, I got presented with a network marketing opportunity. And I went, this is great. I didn't know people actually start businesses like this. And I did. And I went into that as my first business, and she was 6 weeks old, and I used her sleep time to start my business and to learn the skills. And I became obsessed, and I loved it. And I got very far very quickly. And what I was doing, I would then go network in my local area to meet other women. And through that, I realized that there were all these fabulous women who were growing their own businesses, but they were completely isolated. As in, they didn't have the support around them. They didn't have, someone really cheering them on. And my story of, when my husband was constantly asking, well, when are we going to see any money from this business? It was not a story that was only my story. It turns out it was everyone. And so at that point, I made a decision to fix it. So I created a new business and switched to the next level. And I created a company called Real Entrepreneur Mums. And this company was all about, it was a networking group just for women. And we made it very specific it was all designed around a mum, where you could network, you would get referrals. And it was all about having each other's backs. Because I believe that one of the things that has been the big tipping point for me is I always surround myself with people who have my back, but I always have theirs as well. So this community grew really quickly across Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide, and online. And we actually rebranded it to Real Entrepreneur Women, because it turns out we were getting contacted by so many women who go, I'm not a mum yet, or I'm a pet mum, or can I please join? This is amazing. And we were like, yes. And it grew really fast. But then I saw a bigger problem, which was that even if women have the support around them, right, and then we'll get some referrals and they had that tribe around them, if they didn't know fundamentally how to package, price, and sell themselves, which means make money, then they were going back to get a job, or they were still getting that added pressure. And so from them, I decided to make it my mission to then help women to become wealthy women. And when I talk about wealthy women, I talk about on all areas of life and business, as in a wealthy woman has time for the ones that she loves. She is financially independent so that she can choose how she spends her time. If she's in a relationship that she doesn't want to be in, she can leave because she doesn't have to stay there. She can go crazy on the kids for Christmas if she wants to. She can buy herself a new Rose All Day t-shirt if she wants to. It's about choice and having freedom of those choices and how she spends her time. And so 18 months ago, I founded the Wealthy Woman Mastermind. And what we do is we work with women to package up all of their skills, their gifts, their talents, their expertise, their juicy energy, and we show them how to then price it at and charge what you're worth. None of this like cheap underselling, discounting and half price, none of that, but charge premium rates, because if you're an expert at what you do, then you should be able to charge for that level. Men do it all the time, but for some reason, women don't want to seem greedy, or they want to save the world and help everyone. But that starts with you first. So package, price, and then sell, which is how do you use social media? How do you use Facebook groups? How do you use Facebook ads to be able to find the right dream client for you so that you can solve their problem? And one of the biggest things that we coach on, this is what I'm going to be doing in my workshop next week. So if anyone is a coach or a consultant or a service provider, this workshop is going to be definitely for you. It's then looking at, okay, how do you then get rid of that sleazy car salesman that we've all had an experience of and you need a shower afterwards? How do we just fall in love with sales? And one of the things is all about switching your mindset from sales to service. So we have, awesome, Lauren, I'd love to have you there. We have this thing in our brains, and I see it mainly with women, that we feel like selling is about taking something from people. If we're taking money from them, and that leaves us feeling all yucky, but we have to flip it around. Sales, if you take one thing from this and you have a business, write this down. Sales equals service, and service equals impact, and impact equals cash flow, and cash flow equals a thriving business and life. Meaning that most women start a business because they want to have freedom in their life. They want to have a life that lights them up. But if you don't have the cash flow, consistent cash flow coming in, that freedom won't be there for very long. And to have cash flow, you have to be able to make an impact on a bigger number of people, right? But you can't make an impact if you have no clients. And you can't have clients if you don't fix your relationship with sales. So in our training next week, we're going to go deep on that so that you can really release anything around selling and fall in love with selling so that you can actually help your clients to have the transformations in their lives. And my one last thing is, at every point in my life, I think my biggest value that I bring, but also it's just who I am, back yourself first. If you want your life to look different than how it looks today, no matter if that's your health, your finances, your relationships, if you want it to look different, then back yourself and go and change it. There are incredible speakers you're going to hear from this weekend. Reach out to one of them. I never work alone. I always have a team around me. And you're incredible. But if you really want change in your life, then you have to back you first before anyone else will. Thank you so much for having me, and have an amazing day for everyone else.